Let's meet our nominees. Please welcome for Jackass Presents Bad Grandpa, Steve Prouty. Steve, please come up and take a seat. Steve is credited as makeup effects. Steve finished the kitchen sink, and most recently, the prosthetic work on Get On Up about James Brown. This is the first Oscar nomination for Steve. And Steve, I believe that you have a special guest that you're going to introduce.
That's right, Mr. Johnny Knoxville.
Why does everyone giggle whenever they say Jackass Presents Bad Grandpa?
Because they love it so.
It's wonderful to have you here. I know that this was a project that you've done before. You've done Bad Grandpa. So how did Jackass Presents Bad Grandpa take place?
Well, the idea came up from the studio a number of years ago, and around 2011 we started seriously considering it, and we wrote for a solid year in 2011 and took it to the studio and asked them, do you still want to do it? And they did, luckily, and yeah, and that's how it came. It's a really, movies, you know, it's not that exciting how movies come together, but we felt we'd give a shot at doing a whole movie with that character.
But this was very unique because you weren't just, we've got a picture of you behind here. This was very unique because this was, you know, there's guerrilla filmmaking and then there's Bad Grandpa.
Well, we're basically slightly above a student film in the way we execute things. Our makeup is like stellar, but our knowledge is very minimal.
Well, we're gonna go through some of the process that took place in doing this makeup, Steve, I'd like for you to kind of tell us what was happening here, and Johnny, if you can tell us from the person sitting in the chair what some of this was like.
Well, I would sit there for 3 hours every morning and listen to Bart Mixon, Jamie Kelman, Will Huff, and Stephen Prouty tell the filthiest jokes. Literally, by the time I got done with makeup, I had no problem. I was completely in character as a dirty old man. It was wonderful. And they actually, some of their lines they would throw out, because I was sitting right in the chair for 3 hours, and some of the lines they would throw out while I was writing ended up in the film. So they also contributed to the writing of the film.
All right, all right. Steve, what do we got going here?
Right here is kind of early on in the process. We've got putting down our first big piece, which is the neck and cheek wrap, and so that the glue down process probably took about an hour 15, and then we'd go into painting and then hair work. And here we are finishing up his cheeks on, and he's already got the bald cap, back of the neck, ears, nose, and here we are in paint mode.
The painting is where it amazed me. Every single day, it amazed me how they would just make everything come alive when they started to paint. It's just unbelievable to me.
Yeah, it's creepy looking until the paint goes on. And we used a combination of products here. Skin Illustrator was our main paint medium, and then we'd even go with packs on some of the, like the bald cap and that, as well as rubber mask grease, old school, around the eyes, and here we are just finishing that up.
In Amsterdam, by the way.
This was Amsterdam?
Everyone was on their best behavior.
Yeah. And here's the wig going on, and the wig was great. This one was tied by Steven Anderson, who's a member of our guild. Fantastic work. He used a very fine lace that we were able to hide quite well, and but it was still durable enough for all the stunt work that Johnny had to do.
Now, this is quite a thin wig.
Very thin.
You pretty well see through it.
Absolutely.
But I never saw lace, and I never saw glue. I never saw shine from the glue. What were you using?
We used a new spirit gum, or new to us, which was Telesis Spirits from PPI. Really great stuff if you haven't tried it. And it mats out. It reminded me of old school spirit gum. It has that ether smell, and it mats out really nicely. And once it was on, we'd use a little bit of wax over top of it, right on the edge of the lace, and that would just knock the sheen right out of it. But it never yellowed, or it never got crusty, or any of those things that you run into with it. And we couldn't have that happen because, as you said, the tying was so thin and sheer that you could see right through it.
Yeah, we shot 60 days over 10 months, and sometimes people would recognize the character, but not once did someone, while I'm pranking them, recognize the makeup. I was an old man to everyone I pranked, which is extraordinary accomplishment. I mean, I'm nose to nose with people.
Yeah, definitely. Now, because it was going to be so close, was there anything that you did differently?
I think we took an extra effort not to overpaint, not to go too theatrical. It had to look real to us inches away from it. So I think the painting was especially a part that we took extra care in. And I was really proud because it was the three of us working on it together in a combination of Bart, Will, and Jamie, and myself. And as Johnny said, that's when it really comes to life. And I think that was probably one of the parts that I was most proud of.
Now, I think we have some of those individuals in the audience, don't we?
Yes, we do. We have Jamie Kelman and Bart Mixon right here.
All right. Stand up, fellas. Jesus.
Now, how many pieces were involved in this?
There were 11 pieces on Johnny's head and one on each of his hands as well. And it was a combination of everything. We used mostly silicone, but we had latex pieces, we had foam latex, we had Bondo lips and hands, we had silicone, the rest of the pieces. So it was truly, I mean, the only thing we didn't put in was gelatin, and nobody wants that.
There were a couple pieces you made that went in my shorts. But
Oh,
I guess
yes,
we're
those
not
pieces.
talking about those here tonight.
We could probably touch on those.
And Johnny, you were very physical.
Yes, sir.
In this film, very physical. Was there anything with the makeup that was restricting with what you were doing?
Not at all. It was incredibly resilient. I did a bit in the movie where I was on a kiddie ride and I got slung through a department store window. And I stood up. My hands were bleeding a little bit, but I went on to prank people for 15 minutes afterwards, and it looked just like when I walked into the scene. So it was really resilient.
So none of the glass ended up in the appliances themselves?
There was a couple little pieces we had to pluck out of there, but it didn't damage it at all. So we were able to go right into filming more bits that day.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's talk about taking the makeup off.
Mm-hmm.
How long did that take?
About 2 beers.
Yeah, about 2 beers.
At first, it was 45 minutes, but by the end, we got it down to, you guys got,
30
we,
minutes or so.
they got it down to 25 minutes or so, but we never told the second AD that.
No.
They're always walking, how long you take, and
You got to keep some secrets.
yeah. So
Okay.
the official answer is 45 minutes.
Yes, 45.
Okay. Now, here we get a little bit more complicated.
Yes.
I'll bet this added a little bit more time to
This definitely added some time those days. We shot the body makeup for 2 days of the shoot, and it took the 3 hours and tacked on another 2 for the body makeup. So he was,
The last two standing up.
yeah.
Wah.
Yeah, right. But no, took it like a pro, and we. I think after the second day, though, what was?
I wrote it out of the script after the second day. And the worst thing is we were filming in a nightclub for this prank we did in a strip club. And so I'd spent about an hour at the bar, you know, pranking people at the bar and waiting for the dancers to come on. But, you know, I was in a bar, so I thought I would have a few drinks, and I got a little liquored up and forgot to take my shirt off in the bed. I took my pants. I remember to take my pants off, but I sat in makeup for 5 hours and forgot to take my shirt off. So, sorry, guys.
That's okay. Technically, it is in the movie, just under your shirt.
Now, is there going to be another Bad Grandpa?
What, did Paramount ask you to ask that? There may be. There's no plans to do one right now, but I think it would be. We had a ball. Like you know, from our whole crew has been together since Jackass, and I've worked with Steve and the guys for a long time, and we have so much fun. So there's definitely a possibility.
Great. Well, there's a wonderful display of the appliances that were used, and there's a whole mock-up of a bust of Bad Grandpa. So later on, when you go downstairs, you'll see all of the wonderful things that transformed Johnny Knoxville, in this young-looking man, into
Handsome, too.
this character here. Okay. So thank you so much, Johnny, for coming in. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. And I just want to thank Alterian and Tony Gardner and Stephen Prouty, Bart Mixon, Will Hupp, and Jamie Kelman. We could not have done the movie without them. Literally, there would be no movie without the special effects makeup guys. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Please thank Johnny for being here. And we're going to ask Steve to take his seat. Please welcome for the Lone Ranger, Joel Harlow. Joel is credited as the personal makeup artist for Johnny Depp, makeup department head, and special effects. Joel recently finished Mordecai, Into the Woods, was prosthetic supervisor for Jersey Boys, and will soon be preparing Black Mass. This is the second Oscar nomination for Joel. He was nominated for Star Trek, where he won an Oscar. Thank you. And we have Gloria Pasqua-Casny. Gloria is credited as the department head hair. Gloria recently finished the film Divergent, and this is the first Oscar nomination for Gloria. And Joel, I believe that you have a special guest.
We do, yes, we have Mason Cook. Is he back there?
I think he's coming up.
Oh,
from
there
the
you are.
audience.
Come on up.
Here we are.
I'm not as special as Johnny. I don't get to go back there.
Yes, you are.
Well, we are glad to have you downstairs earlier and glad to have you up here now.
Well, thank you.
So it's great. Let's take a look first at young Tonto. Okay, now here we've got a great deal of makeup, we've got a great deal of hair, and we got the crow. So Joel and Gloria, tell us about this character. What was involved in all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of give you a little backstory as to where this character originated, and that was in 2009. Johnny and I were shooting a film called The Rum Diary in Puerto Rico. I was pulling images for this carnival sequence that was coming up, and one of these images I had pulled was this Kirby Sattler painting entitled I Am Crow. And it's basically this makeup. It was sort of a white face with the black stripes, and there was a crow that, you know, it could have been on his head or maybe flying slightly behind his head. We opted to go with on the head because it is an historically accurate, you know, ritual practiced by some Native Americans. There are 7 prosthetics on his face to achieve that cracked mud look. Another 4 on his body. I was assisted by Ken Niederbaumer in applying this makeup every day. He shot, yes, he's out there, right? Kenny, where are you? There you are. He shot about 85 days in this makeup. And then the crow, the crow was an engineering, challenge all in its own. He has a vacuform head cap. Gloria braided his hair, and we pinned the cap onto him. And then on top of that cap, he's got nylon threaded rod that enters or exits the wig and enters the bottom of the crow. There's a chamber on top of the crow that we can open, and we tighten the crow on with a nylon nut. And that holds the whole thing together. What that allows us to do is take the crow off and on, switch crows, because there were multiple versions, without having to remove the wig. And Gloria, maybe you can talk a little about the wig.
Oh, it's a wig. We had to cornrow his hair so that we can keep it on, like Joel said, because on the train at 40 miles an hour, sometimes backwards, so that all the hair was in his face. So we sewed hair to his breastplate and put threads through his hair and anything we could do to keep it out of his face. And then we did the feathers, and we did all the leather wrapping, and Miki Caparuso did a lot of, my PA did a lot of feather work, a lot of leather and feathers, and beading. So we did the entire headpiece.
Now, also, you've got a lot of long hair.
Yes, we do. It's probably, I think down the middle of the back, it's 30 inches, 32 inches.
So you had sequences also on the train.
Yes.
With the long hair, with the crow, with all that happening.
Upside down. He was upside down hanging under the train, too, with his head back on the tracks with his hair dragging. That was awesome. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of sewing. I employed my second grade potholder skills of weaving. Weaving
And
thread.
bejoling. And bejoling.
Yes.
And bejoling.
All that. So there was a lot
Okay.
of work trying to keep it together.
Now, Mason, we saw you at the very beginning of the film,
Yes.
and then we saw you at the end of the film.
It's
Now,
pretty cool.
I'm going to assume that you had some rehearsals with Johnny Depp. You met Johnny Depp before you started shooting, right?
I did. We had lots of pre-shooting rehearsals and table reads, and through all that, I got to see what Johnny looked like as a normal person. And then my reaction when I first saw him come on stage as the older version of Tonto, I was like, it was just kind of, I was in awe. My jaw dropped because of how they could transform Johnny into the older version of Tonto, and it was just amazing. It's really incredible.
So when he came on that first day, or when you walked onto the set and he was there, I know that you knew that was going to be Johnny, but that must have been kind of a shock, wasn't it?
It was definitely a shock. I mean, it was hard to get a good look at him because all I saw was Joel running around like a madman trying to get it all ready before we start filming. But
Nothing like the truth of a child.
I know, right? I mean, I've got to be truthful.
Mhm, absolutely. No, we love it. What else?
I can't lie.
What else was he doing?
Well, he was aggressively trying to shove a straw into his mouth because I guess he needed a drink of water, and he was.
I don't know how aggressive it was.
He was just.
It's like I got a running start at him.
Yeah. He had to get a running start, definitely.
Okay, here's a wonderful look. Now, let's go to one more here. And here we're in the makeup trailer. And here we see the whole body. We see the face, we see the body, we see the arms, we see everything. But if you remember in the film, old Tonto is very thin, very almost skeletal. He's so thin. So this is one of those perfect examples of the blend of makeup and visual effects, but the planned blend. So this is totally designed to work along with visual effects because obviously you can put things on, but you can't make somebody skinnier. So Joel, tell us about this.
Yeah, I mean, the nature of prosthetic makeup is that it is additive. It's not a subtractive art. I mean, you can cheat that by bringing forth, cheekbones and skeletal structure, but ultimately what you're doing is you're adding bulk. And no matter how you shadow, no matter how you paint, you're still adding. So the plan was, and since we shot this at the top of the movie, at the beginning of a 153-day shooting schedule, Johnny was bulked up for the young Tonto version. So the plan was always to apply the makeup as if it's camera ready, and then, post-shooting, I would sit with the folks from Lola, and we would go through with gore and digitally compress the areas that needed compression, such as his arms, his shoulders, his waist. But I was very much involved in that process. I did numerous Photoshop designs. I was in the room. And ultimately what you get is the shot you had directly before this, which was a frame grab from the film. So you can see, maybe not, you don't see the whole body there, but, you get a sense of sort of what they did. They thinned him down, really, but using the existing skin, skin texture, the sculpture, and if I could point out that Ken Niederbaumer, Mike Smithson, and I applied this. It's like I said, 17 pieces. Took about 8 hours to get him in it. He shot for about a week with a few days of pickups, and then another 2 hours to remove him because it was a full body glue in, and there was nowhere to hide anything.
And what were you using
it was
as
a
the
lot of work.
adhesives for most of this?
It was Telesis.
Telesis.
Telesis 5, was our
Okay,
primary
so it would come
adhesive.
off a little easier than the Pros Aid.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And in removing something like this, you don't want to rush it, knowing that he's going into makeup again the next day. But Johnny is.
It's interesting that both films have full body appliances like this. Here we've got getting the appliances sort of ready, doing a little sculpting.
Yeah. Look at him go, sculpting away there. There were two makeups. The first old age makeup we tested here in LA, and everybody approved it, everybody liked it, but Mike and I knew that there were some things we wanted to change. So the second makeup, as opposed to being sculpted over the course of a month and a half in prep, was sculpted in about a week, right before shooting. So
And here we have sort of looks like the whole crew together here, working, putting things on the last final touches. There's Gloria with her headband and setting things up there.
Joel, is that a smile?
What? Hey, what?
Is that a smile?
Oh, Mason, you're
Wow.
gonna get it after this.
Wow.
What do you mean? Wow, you act like I was
First time.
miserable.
I'm sorry. It's just,
I want to hear more from Mason.
Yeah. Wait.
again, I have to tell
No,
the
we
truth.
don't. No, we're good. We're good with Mason, aren't we?
Now, I love this shot because I titled this shot Department Head Hair. So this, Gloria, is where he's buried, right?
Yes, I spent a lot of time like that behind too. Yeah, because
Even when he was standing up.
Yeah, even when he was standing,
She's
I'd be
still
like
doing
that. No, because as you see, he's in a hole, and they would put the dirt back and forth. So I just had to stand there and take care of everything as they kept changing. We kept taking him in and out of this hole. So.
Okay, and you had a lot of great characters. Here
Yeah.
we've got William Fitchner and as Butch Cavendish, and you see him in the not made up, and then you see him in the actual character.
Yeah. Bill has. When we got Bill, because initially there was another actor slated, we got him a couple days before we started shooting him, and Gore wanted to change his appearance because he is so recognizable. So I started sculpting a nose on him and just carried it into this scar on his lip. And at the last minute, I got together with Lenny McDonald, who was on my crew. Lenny's right out there, and suggested that we do something that we had done way back when we worked together at Steve Johnson's shop, which was this sort of lip augmentation, to accentuate the split in Bill's lip. And Lenny came up with this vacuform dental prosthetic that has a little bit of wire that forces his lip up into that scar. And then we replace that tooth with, silver, because that's sort of the bane of everybody's downfall in this film.
And Gloria, you've got a lot of hair again working here.
Yes, it's another wig. We did it a little bit faded. I mean, originally they wanted his hair to be very black, but because he was so aged, and there's stretch and stipple in there too, and distress, we decided to do it a little bit grayer and duller, and he's got gray, and he's got a rattlesnake tail in his hair because he's like reptilian and slimy, and we got it from the Rattlesnake Museum in New Mexico. There's an actual rattlesnake
before.
museum. Yeah, we sent our friends out to go to collect tails, but yeah.
Now here we've got Barry Pepper
Yeah.
in looking without makeup, and then looking as a character, and then looking not quite so good on a certain day.
Stressed. Very stressed.
Now, when we go downstairs in the lobby, you're going to see this wig, the mustache, and the goatee. Is that down there too?
It is.
Okay. Some wonderful, wonderful display that you're going to just be knocked out by. Now, here's a shot of some of the crew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about this.
Upper right-hand corner is Brian Perkle, who was one of our New Mexico locals. He's made up, this is all for the same sequence, this Hell on Wheels sequence. He's made up as the geek. And then to his left, that's me, in a makeup that Bill Corso did on me, wearing this goat skeleton puppet because I wanted sort of the illusion that this thing was marionetting me, and its marionette. That's downstairs as well. Then Robin Beauchesne as the bearded lady.
All right,
Robin
Robin, stand
Beauchesne.
up.
She's out there,
Where's Robin?
sans beard.
There you go.
And of course, Mike Smithson, Mike He as the mute ventriloquist. And he, you know what? You got to hand it to him because he grew those chops out
Yes.
for like 3 months.
Remember that, Mason?
And he's in it like that.
Okay, well, those are wonderful shots. We want to thank Mason for coming and joining us.
Well, thank
It's
you.
so great. And we'll ask everybody to take your seats downstairs, and we're going to take a look at the clip. Thank you, Mason. It was good getting a little additional information on this, so we appreciate it. Next, we have Dallas Buyers Club. Please welcome Robin Mathews. Earlier, Robin completed When the Game Stands Tall, and most recently, Wild with Reese Witherspoon. This is the first Oscar nomination for Robin. And we have Adruitha Lee. Adruitha is credited as the department head hairstylist. Adruitha recently finished Dark Place with Charlize Theron and is now working on Crossbones with John Malkovich. And, absolutely. And soon both Adruitha and Steve Prouty will be working together on Goosebumps. This is the first Oscar nomination for Adruitha. This was a great film and great character development all the way through. I know this film was sort of in the process for a long period of time. I believe the actors had quite a bit of time for preparing. You know, the actor or the director had quite a bit of time. Now, I should say, for this film, we don't have a surprise guest. That's your surprise. Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto are both at the Spirit Awards as we speak. Both wanted to be here. We're trying to be here, and it just didn't work out. And Jean-Marc Vallée, the director, was totally planning on being here and ended up ill and was not able to come. But I just wanted you to know that all three of them were very supportive of the fabulous work on this film. The work on this was very subtle, but very, very effective. As we look at this first clip here, we see Matthew looking healthy, and we see him looking not healthy. Now, this was accomplished wonderfully, both with makeup and hairstyling. A number of things that were done, because one of the things that I would like to point out is when Matthew was ill, his hair looked ill. Okay, when he was healthy, his hair looked healthy. So it was really a combination of these two artists. So tell us what you had going here.
Well, Matthew and Jared both had many levels of sickness, many stages to portray AIDS. This was probably one of his sickest looks. Probably only more sick than that would be to add the rash called seborrheic dermatitis and lesions. But we started out with just the first stage would be probably pale, but Matthew and Jared, as they looked at their weight, since we all know they lost between 40 and 50 pounds to play the roles. Then we'd add contour on a lot of the facial bones, and anytime you see any of the body, it's full body makeup as well. It's matching exactly what's on the face, meaning contouring every bone in the body that we could. Then we'd add highlight for another stage, then start highlighting and contouring bones that we couldn't see, things that I couldn't see on their face any longer. So I had to study skeletons. I had skeletons and skull pictures right next to them to figure out where those bones need to be that I couldn't see. And then highlighting and contouring veins on top of that, which really made them look thin and emaciated. So it was a long process.
As far as Matthew's hair, when he walked into the production office, which is where I did all the changes on him, we didn't have a hair and makeup trailer. We
shot in one, but we didn't have one in prop.
We shot in one, but we didn't have one when I went to do Matthew's hair. So when he walked in, I kind of took a deep breath because I had not seen him looking that thin ever before. But anyway, so I told him, I said, okay, you're halfway there. Let's take you the rest of the way. Are you willing to do what you need to do for me to change your hair and make you this character? And he said, do what you need to do. And he was great about letting me color it, cut it, change the texture, do everything there in the office. And he had to shampoo his hair in the bathroom sink in the wash basin, little wash basin. And he was great about it. And but anyway, for his healthier looks, his hair was darker. And for the when he was a lot sicker, I would do the roots lighter, so that it looked like his hair was thinner, and I would change the part slightly to and just did a few things with the color to make it look like he had less hair because he was sicker. And with Jared, it was basically I used the scarves on his head to make him more vulnerable and to expose him more. And then of course we used the different wigs for when he was trying to look better.
We'll get to Jared in a minute. Because we've got some wonderful shots of Jared also. Here we see another shot with Matthew. And this is where he's in the hospital, I believe.
Yeah, he's in the hospital here where he's one of his sickest levels. The only thing sicker is when he's at the end of the film at the Supreme Court. But to make him look healthier as opposed to this, I mean, they were very skeletal. So I used plumpers, dental plumpers, upper and lower, divided into 4 pieces to fill out his cheeks, and then reverse highlight and contour. I mean, tons of reverse highlight and contour to really make them, look fuller. We shot in 23 days, extremely out of sequence. So there was no time for them to gain or lose weight for the different parts of the film where they needed to be 25 pounds heavier or lighter. So we just had to do it all with makeup. Jared, we only had for 2 weeks. So everything you see with Jared is within 2 weeks of shooting, that he looks that heavy and healthy, or that sick, and thinner. And we couldn't do dental plumpers on him because we didn't get him until like the day before he started shooting. So it was just Matthew that used that.
One of the things that when I first saw I think I saw pictures from the film before I actually saw the film. And of course my first reaction was, well, they shot the healthy part, and then he lost a whole bunch of weight, and then they shot the not healthy part. But you were going back and forth every day with gaunt and healthy, weren't you?
Yeah, 5 times was the worst. The schedule was completely built around the art department's needs, 100%. And we kept saying, can we please try to tailor it more around, these actors aren't really dying of AIDS, they need makeup. But that wasn't going to happen, so it was a lot of back and forth.
Now here we have a shot of him looking even worse.
This is his worst stage. That's when he's the sickest at the end, when his medications get taken away, and he develops this rash. All AIDS patients, what I learned from my research is that all AIDS patients develop 3 main things, and that's they get very skeletal in the face, especially in the cheekbones and the temples and stuff like that. They develop this rash and then lesions as well.
Now, is this the shot that has Mom's concoction?
It is. Because we had, it was a $4.5 million budget. My makeup budget was $250. We had to struggle for that $250.
Now that's 23 days. Break that $250 down and divide it by 23 days.
It doesn't mean that's all we had. Obviously, I gave my entire kit to the film as well. But to purchase anything additional, I would have, breaking this film down, I thought, okay, I'm going to use little prosthetic pieces, Bondo pieces or transfers for the rashes and the lesions. And we just didn't have the time or the budget or the money to do that. So I had to think back to old school ways and just, the whole thing was paint and powder. Besides the dental plumpers, every single thing you see in the film is paint and powder. Just went back to old school, out of the kit stuff. And this right here is, I hand painted the rash with Illustrator, and then I topped it with 3 layers of straight green marble concentrate using stretch and stipple. I didn't put Adagel because I didn't want them to look old. I just wanted it to look rashy. And as the 3rd layer was drying, I said, okay, what can I make these pustules out of? And I kept studying the pictures and realized maybe powdered milk or grits or cornmeal or something like that. And so I started practicing on my hand, figuring it out, and I realized that one little grit was too white, one little piece of cornmeal was too yellow. So if I tweezered them on one by one grit or cornmeal at a time, it made this. And Mathews saw it, and I had the real pictures of the AIDS patients, and he's like, oh my God, it looks amazing, we have to do this. I'm like, Matthew, this is a huge movie for you. You just lost a tremendous amount of weight. The work you're doing is insane. I can't put grits and cornmeal on your face. I can't do it. And he pushed me. He's like, it looks exactly like it's supposed to look. Let's do it. So, and the mom comment about, you were mentioning my mother, we didn't have any more money left at that point, so I had to borrow the grits and cornmeal from my mom's pantry.
All right, now, let's think a minute about casting, okay? And we've got the character of Rayon. Okay, here's Jared Leto, and here's Rayon. Now, if Jean-Marc had been here, I would have asked him, how did you end up casting Jared? What did you see in Jared with a beard and a mustache and long hair, looking like an extremely handsome guy? And we have Rayon. Beautiful transformation. So this is where you were talking about using the scarf,
Yeah.
which
we
kept
used-
the head very, very small.
Yes. It exposed his face. It made him look more vulnerable. And, that was one of the things that he was comfortable in doing, when we were doing the hospital scenes, because we talked about it, and, that was what we come up with this scarf. And, of course, the brown wig, the story behind the brown wig.
Here we've got the brown wig. Tell us that story again, because the majority of the people have not heard that story, I'm sure.
Okay, we could not afford wigs, so I was trying to pull wigs out of my wig kit, and I came up with a couple that I was really excited about, and I kept showing Jean-Marc, and he said, no, that looks too good for Rayon. So I'd take it back to the trailer, and I'd cut holes in it, and I would remove hair. I did everything. and showed it to him again. No, that looks too good. And I said, okay, I'm going to fix that. So by this time, I was just frustrated. And I didn't tell anybody this until after the movie was over, that I just took it out in the parking lot of the base camp in the gravel and drove over it a few times. Got it, shook it off, took it back in the trailer. And when Jared came in, I said, here, I want you to try this one on. And so we put it on him, called Jean-Marc. He said, oh, that's great, thanks.
It's a good thing Jean-Marc's not here.
Now also, down where with the display setups and everything, you're going to see a piece of that tire. Okay, some of the tools of the trade. Okay, so we've got a couple more shots here. Now here we see Rayon really at one of her worst.
Yeah,
What was involved in helping to create this?
Well, she's her character is a drug user, and so she declines much more rapidly than Matthew. And my backstory on her is that, you know, she was a hustler and she was out partying for days at a time. So she probably, she took her female hormones when she could afford them, but when she couldn't because she was out partying or she didn't have any money, then her little beard would grow in, her eyebrows that I waxed completely off in the beginning of the film would grow back in, and so she picked her skin from, drug use, that type of stuff, blemishes, things that Matthew's character didn't get. And that's what this is here. I found a little trick that I totally just discovered is that when, like I said earlier, we went back and forth about 5 times, switching from healthy to sick. So when I tried to remove the green marble concentrate, which, as you know, is not really easy to remove, it would leave little patches underneath, and the makeup changes had to be so quickly because our director shoots without any lighting setup. We have no grip or electric equipment, crew, nothing. All handheld camera. It's all ambient lighting. So the entire crew of 70 people is always waiting on hair and makeup. And during the makeup changes, I couldn't get all the green marble concentrate off of his face, and it left little tiny patches like this. And I powdered them over to knock them down. I realized they looked like little individual blemishes, and it was perfect. So I kept having to powder the hot spots, but that's what that is. It was an accident that, I guess that's how great makeup's created. And
Okay, that's great. I've got a couple of more shots here. Here we see the two of you, it looks like just before getting ready to shoot. They're on the set. And then this is a picture I like because here are the two, and they're bathed in the red light of success.
At the motel.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Can I say one more thing? I just want to say that my amazing key makeup artist, Melanie DeForest, is here from New Orleans. Mel, stand up. Where are you?
Now, please welcome all of the Oscar nominees back on stage. Before we start our question and answer portion, I'd like to read remarks made a couple of years ago by Steven Spielberg at the Producers Guild Awards when he received the David O. Selznick Award. He said, "No one can succeed alone. An evening like this reminds me that for every film and TV show nominated tonight, someone reached out to give you their hand. Whether all of us are working together or competing, inside this very small creative community, we're always holding somebody's hand, and I'm grateful to feel all of your hands holding mine right now." I think it's a wonderful statement of how all of this takes place with the film process, the makeup and hair styling process, because it is a team and group of people that make it happen. Now, as we start our question and answer period, I'm going to just point out that there are people in the audience, or in the aisles. They have microphones. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone to you so that everybody can hear the question that you're going to ask. Also, if you want to ask more than one question, please wait, ask the one question, and please wait a little bit for other people to ask some other questions. Okay, So we've got a great group here. Fabulous, fabulous work. What about questions from you, the audience?
So, hello, my name's Jeff. I'd like to congratulate all of you. Really amazing. I work in new formats, 4K and 8K. And as these cameras and new digital image acquisition formats come along, maybe this is a question more for the larger budget films, but could you give us maybe your impression of how that might affect your craft?
Joel, you want to take it? And then Steve?
Yeah. Well, I mean, anytime, I think this is probably true of all of us. Anytime, certainly when I do a makeup, I try to make it believable for the eye. I feel if I can do that, then, whatever, lighting situation we throw it under, whatever, format we shoot in, I'm going to be okay. But why do you have to make it so detailed? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Give us
Here,
a break,
here.
man.
Here, here.
It's
Throw some
fantasy.
Vaseline on that lens.
Steve?
I totally agree with Joel, and also I think we have to work a lot harder and closer with production to make sure that we see dailies as they're going to be shown, so that we understand how what we're doing translates. And
You mean opposed to the DVD that they give you that you take home and
yeah, that
put
you
on
pop
your
in your
television?
hotel room TV
Okay.
there. And
All right. Gloria
Yes.
and Adruitha, we end up with that same kind of situation with wigs, lace.
Lace. I mean, it's great when you're lighting people work with you, but usually, as you see where we shot out in the middle of, the canyon or somewhere that there's no real help. But so all we can do is just do our best, and wax sounds good. And
it's just really good.
wax sounds great.
Okay, another question.
I got a question over here.
My question is for Robin Mathews. Did you guys not push for a higher budget for that? I mean, you're really creative, and I would like to congratulate you for being nominated with that kind of a budget.
Thank you.
So, I mean, it's just sad that hairstyling and makeup is not given so much priority, and that this should be the case because it's very important. It's not just the money for the actors, but it's really good artistic work, which all of you have been doing.
Well, thank you very much. If I had the power to push for a higher budget, I would do it every job I have. But that's not really how it works, unfortunately. We lost our funding for Dallas Buyers Club. I think maybe you know or don't know. It's been spoken about a lot in the media. I think 19 years this has been trying to be made.
2 weeks before we shot.
Yeah, 2 weeks
We
before we
lost our
shot, we
budget.
lost all the funding. And Matthew and Jean-Marc Valet, our director, got together on the phone the Sunday night before we were supposed to start shooting on Monday and spoke to one another and said, we have no money. I'll show up tomorrow if you show up. And they both agreed. Of course, they didn't tell any of the crew this. So we all showed up for work thinking everything was fine. But, it wasn't just us that had no budget. It was the whole movie. It's just we all kind of collectively agreed to shoot this as a labor of love and to do it that way. So
Am I right that the budget was $4.5 million?
it was 4.5, yeah.
So pretty small all the way across the board. Another question.
I have a question about in the one scene I noticed Matthew McConaughey had a big vein down the middle of his forehead. I'd like to ask how you did that.
I highlighted and contoured the veins as well, not just the bones everywhere, but in their later sickness, the final stages of sickness. When people are so skeletal and they lose all the volume in their face, all the fat, their veins poke out. And so that was a little trick that I came up with to really make them look even more skeletal. I mean, the actors maintained one weight throughout, so I had to figure out ways in stages to make them look gradually sicker. And highlighting and contouring the veins is that. Even when you saw in the one scene where he's injecting his medicine, the veins were highlighted and contoured, but you didn't really see him pop out until he, kind of held his breath. So, yeah.
I have a question over here.
Hi, my name is Megan. Congratulations to all of you. I hope someday in the future to be sitting where you're sitting. So I just moved to Los Angeles, so this is the first thing like this that I've ever done. My question, though, specifically is, and now, of course, I'm losing my train of thought, to Dallas Buyers Club makeup artist. Robin, yes, Robin Mathews again. So I'm wondering, when you said that you shaved the eyebrows off, were you talking specifically in the sense that the characters shaved them off, or did you actually shave off Jared Leto's eyebrows? And if not, what did you cover them with? Because the whole time I was watching the movie, I was staring at them, and I'm just like, how on earth? Because with Photoshop is one thing, but on film, especially with HD, it's another.
That was Jared's bravery, or Rayon's bravery, since we didn't actually meet Jared ever. But she came in and I said, so how do you feel about waxing off all your eyebrows? And she said, well, I just waxed my entire body, so let's go for it. And within 5 minutes of meeting Rayon, I waxed her eyebrows off completely. And we did it one more time during the film. I was a little scared to do it 3 times because I was worried they wouldn't grow back properly.
Now, am I right that Rayon was always in character? I think when we were at the nominees luncheon, Jared Leto was there. And Robin said, you know, this is the first time that I met Jared, because he had always through the film been Rayon. And I think, if I'm right, I would love to have had Jean-Marc tell the story, but during the entire interview that the director did with Jared, he was totally in the Rayon character, never came out of it.
Yeah, he actually applied lipstick. They were Skyping to one another, and so he applied lipstick, and then he proceeded to flirt with Jean-Marc and try to pick him up. And Jean-Marc said, you know, I kept waiting for Jared to go back to Jared and say, you know, hi, how you doing? This is the character I'm thinking of, and he never did. He just still tried picking up on him, and so he got the job.
Another question.
Here.
Hello, so I have a question. With the full body makeup that the actors are wearing, is there any perspiration that's going on when they're wearing it a long period of time? And does it keep them cool? How does it work?
Steve, you want to take it first?
They do perspire. Fortunately, when we shot Johnny's scenes with the full body makeup, it was a colder time of the year, so that's sweat's the enemy when it comes to prosthetic makeup. So, but we took extra steps, like with his head makeup and that, where we would apply a topical antiperspirant called Sweat Stop, and that helps stave off some of the sweat that happens. And we also left channels through the makeup so he could sweat out and not cause the makeup to become loose. But yeah, some people sweat more than others. Fortunately, he did fine. In fact, it was a little tough to get the makeup off of him. And the first day we did it, we were coming back to the hotel to remove the makeup because we did all the makeups out of hotel rooms. We didn't have trailers or anything. And he starts peeling the body pieces off, and a lot of it's still sticking to him. And I just said, "Don't do that. That's not a good idea." And he's like, "It's fine." He just can't wait to get out of it. And I said, "You're going to have big red welts all over you tomorrow." And nah, I'm good. Next day he comes in, big red welts. And he's like, "You're right. I won't do that again."
See, Mason, the actors don't always know best. Okay? So always listen to your makeup artist and hairstylist.
That's right.
Joel, what about you? What was your situation here?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, it becomes, a case of trying to maintain coolness on the set. I mean, this is one of the few, the old Tonto stuff is one of the few scenes we actually shot on a stage. Everything else was shot, on a mountain, on a train, in a river. But we had a cool tent for Johnny. So between shots, we could get him into a place where we could lower his body temperature. But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, you spend 8 hours in the morning applying a makeup, and, you know, for most people, that's their entire day. Your day at the end of that is just starting. So, you know, half your job is applying the makeup, but, you know, certainly the other half is maintaining the makeup. And then there's a third half, which is removing the makeup. What is that, like
That's thirds.
one whole and a half? It's too many halves.
After 8 hours of applying, how long did they shoot?
Well, Gore wisely set it up so that he was shooting another scene in the morning, the Comanche in a teepee, talking about the treaty that had been broken. So we shot that in the morning, and then that allowed Johnny to not come in at an obscenely horrible 2 a.m. call, but rather something around 6 o'clock. We'd do the makeup, you know, everybody would break for lunch, we'd finish, and then go right into this diorama sequence that you see old Tonto in. You know, shoot half the day in that, take him out, you know, and then do the whole thing the next day. And, you know, progressively you get later and later and later because, you know, that's just sort of the nature of the beast. Any of you that have worked on a set know that, you know, you can start with the best intentions at 6 a.m. on Monday morning. Come Friday morning, you're starting at 2 p.m. and working until Saturday morning.
Or Fraturday.
Exactly.
Another question.
I got a question over here.
Hi, Polly, Local 706 Makeup, and my question's for Joel and Gloria. And I'm just wondering, on the really large scene days when you had a lot of makeups going on, how many makeup and hair people did you use? And if those days were in other states, how did you find your makeup and hair people?
Well, I mean, it's, you know, it's easy to say that Lone Ranger was a big budget movie, and certainly it was that. But every department on every film I've ever been on has its budget constraints. Lone Ranger had gone down once before, and I believe they were 20 million into it at that point. So, you know, we were squeezed just like everybody else. We did this entire film with a core group of 5 people. And then a couple other shop people. One that I forgot to mention, Steve Biscano, who was sort of my right hand in the shop. I neglected to mention him. And then Sabrina Wilson, who was my assistant and liaised between the makeup department and the lab. You know, I mean, we structured this film so that we could apply makeup in the morning, and then some of us would go back to the lab that was traveling with us, build the makeups, cast the makeups, bring them out, apply them the next day. And we just kept the whole thing going like that. So I believe the question was how many people on the big days? What, like 15, something like that, on days of 300
I think our
background?
biggest day was 12, and we got local people, for hair.
Yeah.
Every state we went to, we found some local people. We had people in Utah that were traveling 3 or 4 hours, and we put them up overnight. We had maybe 2 people from Utah that were local. It was really hard. We brought a lot of our New Mexico crew with us to Arizona and Utah
And you know,
other
when you're dealing
places.
with a period piece like this, everybody is in some kind of special makeup, you know, and Gore puts, you know, multiple cameras on the background. So you can't slag. There's no such thing as A, B, and C, you know, because you could have a C character, you know, 70 feet high. So you got to make sure that everybody's done 100%. And, you know, fortunately, we had a great team.
A great team is so important. Another question.
I have a question back here.
Hi, congratulations once again. I'm curious to know how you collaborate with the actors, the director, to complete the character, as well as the wardrobe, from, you know, brainstorming, or if the actors already come with an idea of what they want the end result to look like, and how you know, collaborate with your own ideas and what the director's vision is as well.
You know, I think that would be a great question for each one of you, just to briefly give an idea about, because each film is different, and a lot of times each actor is different. Some have, you know, a definite idea of what they want, and some, you know, I'll sit down, you do it. Let's start with Robin.
Well, I mean, we were really, really lucky because Matthew and Jared were very, very, advocates of the makeup and hair. They thought it was really, really important. Matthew and I sat down in the beginning of the film. I had worked with him previously, so we knew each other. And we went through every single page in the script, every scene, and wrote down, what's your stage of sickness here? What's your stage of illness in this next scene? And did it together, decided on it together, tested the looks, and, came up with a breakdown that Melanie and I had plastered on our foreheads at all times to just make sure that, because we were so out of sequence shooting, that we followed it and he wasn't in the wrong stage of illness at the wrong time. And Rayon, after I waxed off her brows and she got comfortable with me, because she was sizing me up right before that, big time. Wasn't sure if, whatever. So after that worked out, then she treated me just like her makeup artist, her beauty makeup artist on a daily basis. I'd come in and I'd bring her pictures of, I thought maybe she'd be influenced by ladies of the 60s, actresses. I'd bring her a picture of Bridget Bardot or something, and she'd go, oh, I quite like that. Yes, let's do that today. And so I was just there, as her beauty makeup artist.
Okay. Adruitha?
Hi. My research came from my appointment book in the mid-'80s. This was set in 1985. This was something that I had done so many times before as far as these looks went. I had a great assistant, Kat, but she was just born in the 80s. So, but the research came from, a period that I was so familiar with. And then when I met with Jean-Marc, he had pictures that he came up, that he wanted me to look at. And, Matthew, his idea was, he just wanted to look like the character that he was portraying, and however I needed to come up with that, that's what I did. But between the three of us, it was a collaboration. It's always seems to be a collaboration, and talk to costumes. We had a great costume department and production design, everybody, and you just kind of take all that and you come up with your character looks.
For Grandpa, we had the luxury of having some previous experience doing Knoxville as an old man. So it gave us a chance to take notes from that and say, oh, this didn't work, this worked. Let's really hone in on making this as streamlined and as carefree as possible as far from a makeup perspective. So I sat down with Tony Gardner, who owns Alterian, and we started fresh. We took a new life cast of Johnny, and we did some Photoshop designs and submitted those back and forth with production, and got a lot of notes and changed those around. But by the time we got it into clay, it's completely different, and we disregarded the Photoshop work and just worked in 3 dimensions. And but there was there's input from everyone, from Johnny, from the producers, the director, and everybody had something they wanted to see in it. So we tried to incorporate everyone's ideas and take it as a collective design process.
Gloria?
Exactly. You just, when I first started the film, we started in fittings in the wardrobe warehouse. So I had Penny throwing, our costume supervisor, just throwing all the costumes and different things. So we just started with the ladies and just started making up hairdos that went with it, that went with my research. And then it's like costumes and makeup and the director, and then the actors all bring something to it. They all have an idea. We just elaborate on it. So it's a group effort for sure. I have nothing else. I do a mic.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a long-standing relationship working with Johnny, and certainly he is, my greatest creative collaborator. There's no makeup that we do that he doesn't, weigh in on 100%. Usually he comes to the trailer with, images, and I have ideas, and 95% of the time they sync right up, and we just go into building and testing. Like I said, when we were up here before, this image, the image of young Tonto, came about in Puerto Rico after we had seen that Kirby Sattler painting. So I mean, that it was just a case of fleshing that out, you know, changing sort of the test into the cracked mud and doing all that. But, you know, and then working with Gore. I mean, Gore I had worked with since Pirates 1. And he paid me the greatest compliment when we were doing the Hell on Wheels stuff, because none of those characters were scripted. We came up with all those just because we love makeup. You know, it was a chance for us, because I have such an amazing team working with me. It was a chance for us to say, you know what, let's push the envelope here. Because Gore wanted everything very period correct. That was the one place we could kind of let our hair down and go a little nuts. And you know, and without these guys working around the clock and weekends and, you know, really pushing the envelope, none of those like elaborate, you know, goat man, lummox, geek, none of that stuff would have been in the film. It's just because we love it. But Gore, you know, I said, I told Gore, it's like, look, we've got some specialty characters coming for this Hell on Wheels sequence. It's like, you want to know what they are? He's like, nah, just do what you do and tell me when I got a ringer and I'll throw a camera on it. So, I mean, it's like, you know, that coming from him, it's like, yeah, all right, that's great. That's quite a vote of confidence. So, you know, we just kept making more at that point.
We've got time for one more question.
I have a question over here.
First, I want to commend all of you for your creative magical talents. Very impressive. Joel, I'll ask you this question. What are the after effects to the skin on these people after you've done all this makeup all over their body and their faces? My goodness.
Well, I mean, you know, like I said, you know, removing the makeup is just as important as applying the makeup. You know, there's a tendency, certainly as an artist, for me to, once I'm finished creating, to step back and say, okay, that's it, I've done it. But, you know, that's, you know, that, for lack of a better expression, is your canvas for the very next day. So unless you treat that canvas with the utmost care in removal, it's not going to give you the same quality as it did the day before. So, and certainly you don't want to lose the faith of your actors. So it's, you know, it's just as important to moisturize, to, you know, anybody wearing a makeup, you know, or anybody doing makeup on somebody multiple days in a row, tell them not to get a facial. That is a horrible idea. Okay, so I'm just putting that out, because I've had that happen, not on this show, but on a show way back, and I'll tell you what, you glue something onto somebody that's just had a facial, that's not coming off. They might as well live with that new face. That's a tangent, but yeah, you gotta be, you can moisturize, you clean thoroughly, and you're just very slow, very meticulous in removing the prosthetics, because, you know, you wouldn't want that, you know, you wouldn't want to abrase their skin just like you would not want to abrase your own skin. So.
Okay, you're going to see all of these nominees tomorrow night at the Oscars. Be on ABC. Be sure and watch.